I was holding VTG back from becoming what they truly could be. And when I acknowledged it to my staff and they began to help make changes, I got angry because I felt like they were trying to steal my company away. You know, who are you to make that decision? And so I had to go through the whole emotional process of letting go. It was difficult.
Hey guys, Damien Stevens, host of MSP Mindset, founder and CEO of Servosity. Today, I continue my mission to interview 100 of the fastest growing and most interesting MSPs on the planet. Today, I'm incredibly blessed to be joined by Frank Cox. Now, for all of you MSPs that aren't in the top 100 and you're struggling, I want you to listen to Frank's story. Frank struggled to make it through high school, was addicted to drugs, was on the brink of losing his marriage, perhaps his relationship with his family. He struggled in nearly every way you could imagine. Yet, Frank is also the same person that bought the company from his boss, that turned it around, that hit the $2 million wall and didn't give up, and that has grown from 2.5 to 5 million in just 24 months organically. So if you'd like to learn the story of how he can go from struggling to make it through high school, keep a marriage, and be addicted to drugs, to how you can become one of the fastest growing MSPs in the nation with plans to grow far faster, don't miss out on Frank's story and how it includes God. Frank, tell me how you got started. Go all the way back, even before your MSP. You struggled in high school. Kind of take us from there.
Sure. I really came from, a family with a lot of dysfunction, like a lot of us have. Some of us, if there wasn't dysfunction, we'd have no function at all. Yeah. And so in 1985, I remember we moved from West Virginia to Virginia, and we kind of started this new life here, and I transferred schools. I was so angry I had to move, but in the long run, it ended up being a good thing. I remember I did pretty decent in school until about junior high. And junior high, I started having to take home homework, and I didn't like homework very well. But I did love sports. And so I was playing sports, but then after a while, my grades started catching up in high school. And I was always one of those guys that had a great idea of how to solve my problems. So I remember in 9th grade, or 8th, 9th grade, I told my parents I wanted to go to church school to try to, get myself back on track. So I went to church school for a year. They finally agreed. They didn't have any money hardly. They paid for me to go. And when I found that everybody that, if you have bad problems and you hang around bad people, you can find those people anywhere you're at. And in church school, which was supposed to be my, ticket to reforming my life and getting it all back together, I ended up smoking pot for the first time in my life, drinking beer, alcohol. And finally, after the year, I was like, I need to go back to public school. I was like, I can't stay in here. These people are crazy, They wanted me to learn about God and all these things. And I ended up coming right back and going to regular high school again with all my old friends. And that path kind of continued on to where by the time I was ready to graduate, which I barely made it out of high school, I realized that I was on a bad path. And so, well, I was really doing a lot of drugs, drinking, partying, had a pretty bad temper and everything. And my friends weren't going anywhere. I wasn't going anywhere. And I had one of those moments where I said, you know what, I need to do something in my life. I don't know what. And I had a strong military background in the family. My granddad was in the war, World War II, my uncles, a lot of military background. I said, I know what I'm going to do to fix my life. I was like, I'll just join the Marine Corps. So I was 17 years old. My friend who now works for me as a VCIO was in the first Gulf War.
Oh, wow.
His brother was in my grade. He was a few grades ahead of us. And we both, his brother and I, decided to join the Marines. That was going to get us on the right track. My parents signed for me to go in. And as soon as I graduated in 1992, that winter, I went off to the Marines and started the life of a Marine. And so, and then from that point on, my life continued down kind of a crazy path until I got out in 1996, met my wife, came back here, and the same problems that I'd always had, I was right back into them with all my old friends, the drugs, everything, and just continued down that path until in 1999, just fast forwarding through, I finally hit a brick wall when my youngest daughter was born.
So tell me what that brick wall, what do you mean by that?
In 1992, I know this is an MSP podcast, but I'll just share some real things with you. In 1999, I was strung out on crystal meth. I was running around on my wife. I was a chronic adulterer. I was extremely violent, not with my wife. My mom raised me better than that, but with other men. I had a lot of issues where, from family being the way I was brought up, parents being divorced, remarried, everything from a young age. And I'd gotten so out of control, and I was lying so much to try to cover up the issues that I had, that before you knew it, I actually started to believe my own lies. Now, some people think that's crazy, but you can lie so much to cover up your issues that you can actually begin to live in a fairy tale. And in 1999, I was so strung out and so messed up that I couldn't make heads or tails. Well, my wife got a call that her mother was dying, and she jumped an emergency flight out to California. And so when my wife was out there in California, I was out running around with my friends, doing all the things. And she was trying to get a hold of me while her mother was passing away, a horrible death. It was really tragic. And she couldn't even get a hold of me. And I'm going to tell you honestly, Damien, I didn't even care at the time because I was only worried about what was happening with me. I only cared about that. She finally tracked me down through my mother and told me that her mom had passed away. And she came back home. Little did I know, she's now 7 months pregnant with my daughter.
Oh, so you didn't know at this time?
Well, I knew she was pregnant. I didn't know that what was about to happen. My wife was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm leaving him. I was so strung out, I couldn't even see it.
Wow.
I couldn't see what the problems were. So my wife ended up coming home. She's so under stress, she has to go into bed rest. She breaks out in a rash all over her body. And now my daughter's threatened because, she's a little baby and this is going to be super serious. They put her on bed rest and she wanted to leave, but she's like, you know what? I'm just going to have to do whatever it takes to have this child and then I'll leave. So I remember in March of 1999, I went in there, had the baby. I was so messed up at the time that I had to keep leaving the hospital to keep staying high, keep getting high so I could get through the day. That's how messed up I was at the time. So my daughter ends up being born that month in March. And I'm excited, to have a daughter, but I'm still so messed up in drugs. My wife's still under so much trauma from the birth and everything. She couldn't get out of, she had to stay in bed rest, had to be there. My wife was literally just weathering the storm. She had already arranged it with her brother that she was leaving and going back to California. So,
wow.
Excuse me, this was in January. I apologize. This was in January. So 2 months into this, in March, I apologize, I was holding my little girl in the back room one night, and the fire was burning, and she was very colicky as a little girl, and so she would cry, and I didn't want our landlords upstairs to hear, so I'd take her to the back room. And I remember I was looking down at this little girl, and I began to cry just uncontrollably, because I couldn't believe that my daughter was going to grow up and know that her dad was nothing but a dopehead. And I was ashamed and embarrassed. And so I had this idea, which was a good idea. I said, you know what? I'm going to take her to church regardless of what I'm doing, so I can at least say that I raised her to know who Jesus was. And so I was taking my daughter to church. I would get high, driving there and back. Thank God for keeping me from, having an accident. A guy offered me one day, he said, Kilo, can you come help us do all this? He asked if I could come help him load some supplies for a hurricane ravaged island somewhere. Maybe it was the Dominican Republic. I can't remember exactly where it was. I went there. I went to help him. And on the way home, we started talking that day. And he said to me, look, he started sharing some things about God. And I just stopped him right there. And I said, Jim, hold on a second. I said, a man can't live the way I'm living and expect to be justified. Yeah. I didn't know a lot about God, but I knew you couldn't live this way. He handed me a book in 1999 in March. I started reading this book. It was 380 some pages, I believe, full of the Bible and different things. And I barely made it out of high school. Anyways, about 2 weeks later, through reading this book, I was coming home, strung out. My wife was just getting better. Things were just about to be over. She was going to leave. I'm coming home one day, and as I'm about 2 miles out from the house, I began to break down and started to cry again. And I didn't like to cry in public because I didn't want people to see I was weak. But I started to cry. And as I was driving down the road that day, Damien, I had smoked and done so much drugs. I was taking pills, snorting meth, smoking dope, drinking alcohol. I mean, I was so messed up that it was like all of a sudden in 1 second, all the fog just blew out of my mind. Mm. And remember I'd been reading this book, and all of a sudden I began to cry. And now, I don't know, people have different religious experiences. I didn't know what to expect. I went to church growing up some, but I didn't have any idea or preconceived notion what religion was about. All I knew that is in 1 minute, the fog was blown out, and I just knew in my heart, Frank, you're going to die, and you will end up in hell. Mm. And I don't know, I didn't go to a church that taught about hearing God's voice, anything like that. And I started weeping uncontrollably, and I began to cry with all my heart. I was like, God, I don't want to go there. I got a baby, And I began to cry uncontrollably. And when I started crying out and yelling, it was at that, and I was saying, God, I don't want to do that. It was at that moment that Jesus offered me a different way. Mm. And I remember I screamed so loud, I said, Lord, I will give my life to you if you will just take these drugs from me. And as I was driving on the way home that day, I passed this place, Cooks Creek Church. If anybody's knows where that's at, where I'm from. And as I went past it that day, I reached down, I grabbed all my drugs, I threw them out the window, and I had a life-changing experience, and God saved my life in one day, outside of a church with no knowledge of how to get saved. Mm. I went home. I was a few minutes away from home. I'm in this whirlwind of, I don't know what's going on in my brain. Like I'd never experienced anything like this. I'd never read about this kind of stuff, I didn't know what was going on. So I run down in, I sling the door open on where we live. I look at my wife and I was like, I'm messed up on drugs. And I said, but I just met Jesus and he saved my life. And my wife's like, looking at me like, what are you talking about? Yeah. So she knew I was on drugs, obviously. I was the idiot who had deceived myself. So I remember I looked at her, and I said, are you going to leave me? And I told her, I said, Jesus just saved my life. And my wife, she goes into the bathroom. She shuts the door. She's having a breakdown, like doesn't know what to expect, what just happened with her husband. She's ready to leave. She's going out the door. And I remember I sat down on the couch, and as I sat there on the couch, I said, oh my, I cannot believe it. I just had a life-changing experience, and now I'm going to lose my entire family. And I just kept crying and crying and crying. And what seemed like an eternity, which may have been 45 minutes, I don't know how long, my wife came back out. I'm just crying. And I looked at her, I said, are you leaving me? Mm-hmm. And she says, it is finished. I'm not going anywhere. Wow. And in the bathroom that day, the Lord laid it on my wife's heart. She's right out this door right here, that her husband was finished and over, and it was done. So to finish this story out, I get on the phone because at that moment I knew, and I don't know how, if I heard it, I don't know if it was audible, whatever, but I had this burning thing. Frank, I have answered your father's prayers. I got on the phone. I called Dad, and I was crying. I said, Dad, you're not going to believe this. Today, I gave my life to Jesus. And my dad was crying. I said, Dad, it's like God told me I've answered your father's prayers. He said, son, we have been getting together with other parents and repenting for the sins we passed down to our own children. My dad had been reading in the commandments, I'll pass the sins of the father onto the son, into the third and fourth generation. Now, my grandfather left my father when my dad was 7 years old. My grandma had 5 children. And he was in the bars, a drunk and a mess for most of his life till closer to the end. My dad left and was divorced from my mother when I was in kindergarten and did the same things. And here was generations of the one father not raising the other child, but all of them taking the exact same paths. And then that day, we know today that God broke the curse on my family of the addiction and everything, and saved my household that day. And that's, I know a lot for an MSP show, but that's the truth of how I got to where I am today.
Yeah.
So I came from nothing into something, and it's not me, but it's because of what God's done through me and for me. I owe him everything.
Hey guys, Damien here. As I continue to interview the top MSPs in the world, one thing has become incredibly clear. It's time that we let go. Even more than that, every time I focus on my zone of genius and get out of the way and do the very few things I'm good at and delegate to others, I'm ready for that next level of growth. One way that I could help you is with Servosity. We co-manage your backups and disaster recovery so you can focus on what you do best, let us do the rest. And then what we do is we test the backups every single day so you never have to worry. If you'd like to engage us or just learn more, click the link below. Yeah, I can't tell you how many people are not willing to show up and speak about their story and how God has worked in their life. And probably, like me, many times needed to hear exactly what you're saying. And the multi-generational aspect just resonates. I was I want to make this about you, but I was a high school dropout with no dad around, and just a lot of there's a lot of parallels in the stories that I can very much relate to. So when she said it's finished, I thought it meant she was done with you.
Yeah.
I thought that meant she was walking out. And then, of course, I didn't see, your dad and his hand of prayer.
So my dad, when we were growing up young in West Virginia, my father, we would go drinking. I can remember I was a little kid the first time I touched moonshine to my tongue. I can remember still today how bad it burnt. Mm-hmm. Drinking wine and everything as a little kid, and leading my step grandpa. He would be so drunk from playing horseshoes up at the campgrounds. Me and my stepsister would have to walk him back home, and we just thought that was the greatest thing. We'd go to the dances on Saturday night, and all of a sudden one day, I always knew where the beer was in Dad's refrigerator. Beer was gone. We're going to church. My dad ended up having his own life-changing experience. And he got his life turned around. And this was several years. I was a little younger then, and I certainly didn't like it at the time. But that's what led to him eventually, praying for us, for me, and my stepmom. Praying that they would stop the terrible things, that happen. My stepsister now, I'm so glad we're the same exact age, 2 months off. She's been out of prison now, I think going on 5 years, and she's doing so good. And I'm just so thankful. We are just one messed up family, and I wouldn't change a thing about it.
What a blessing. I can relate to the messed up and without any dysfunction, it probably wouldn't be much function.
That's right. Yeah.
So how do you go from nearly divorced, barely graduated, were hooked on drugs to you're working at an MSP? Like, how does that didn't sound like your normal route.
Well, I was in the Marines. I was a comm man. I was in a line company, it was called. And my last unit I was in was Surveillance Reconnaissance Intelligence Group. And so I was a comm guy, field radio, field wire. So I had some telecom experience and radio experience. So when I got out of the Marines, I went and started as a cable monkey, just cabling. And I got in telecom. I remember they were like, do you have any fiber optic experience? I was like, sure. I'd carried some reels, like when the fiber optics at first came out. I remember carrying some reels around. That was the only experience I'd had at the time. And so I did that for a few years, and then I got into telecom. And then I started realizing in 1999, once I had gotten my life turned around, I wanted to read a Bible program. And my dad had the PC Study Bible on floppies. And it was like a stack that high. I mean, to literally install on a 486 computer. So I got it. And actually, no, that may have been a 386. Anyways, I got it installed on there. And I was like, man, I need some more money. This was just after I got converted. I was like, I could build computers and start selling them. So my dad got me a COD setup so I could start building computers, but cash on delivery. I had to have people prepay me, and then some of the money to have them, and I'd pay them on delivery. But I was getting wholesale prices, which was nice. So I started building computers, and then I was working in telecom with computers and everything. And next thing you knew, I just morphed over into. I was kind of always the lead tech, and wherever I was, I realized I had a gift for it. And then in 2004, I was hired on to Vision Technology Group now as their third employee when they started. So that's when I, really made the full 100, transition really over into an MSP. I was in an MSP before, but it was the old days of whatever an MSP looked like back then, which was break, fix, everything.
Yeah.
There was nothing managed. It was reactive to everything.
Sure.
So, so that's kind of how I got to there. I was all really wanting to read that Bible program. I started realizing I could build these things and make them. And that's how I was making money.
Yeah.
And
I remember those days.
Yeah.
When you could build a computer and make money. My kids look at me like I'm crazy when I talk about that.
I think I spent way more hours building than I actually made money if you put my time against it, though.
Yeah. That was part of the fun in the early days.
Yes, it was.
So, if I understand, you were pretty early, like the third employee?
Yeah, in 2004, I was the third employee of the company. I got hired because it was really weird. The guy who hired me, which ended up being a great mentor of mine, we were on a job site together, and there was an issue and with a router he was having, was dropping packets. And I asked him back in the day, I said, did you set the distance from the T1 circuit to your router, and just to make sure that was all right and everything. And he said, I don't think that's a problem. So I went over there and looked at it, and I'd hooked it up for them and realized I had flipped the pairs on the circuit on the T1. And so I said, oh, I am so sorry. This is my fault. I said, I reversed the pairs on here. I apologized to him. And he said he went back that day and realized he wanted to hire me because he said if I could be that honest with him right there, then I'd be faithful and loyal to him working for him. So that's actually how I got hired, for admitting I made a mistake. That may have been one of the only times that's ever happened.
That's awesome. So how did you end up owning the company? Like, tell me that. Like, how?
Yeah, that's a crazy. So the first 5 years, my mentor and I, who was running the company, he and I specifically together worked ourselves to death to get it up off the ground and get it going. We were nobody was doing contracts back then. We were the first to do contracts. And one of the only competitors in the area that we had, actually, we just acquired them, which was kind of funny. Now that I'm looking back and talking about this story, I just realized our real only competitors we just acquired.
And but it was recently.
Just acquired, yes.
Okay.
Started in January. So one of the oldest computer companies in the state of Virginia. And so we worked there for I worked the first 5 years getting them off the ground. In 2008, I went to work as 2004, 5 years, I went to work around 9, maybe it was, to be the IT director for another organization. And then I came crazy. I worked there for 3 years. I came back for 2 years. I went back for 3 years. And then after I was back for 3 years, I was still working part-time for VTG. The actual owner of the company said, "Can you come back and take the business over?" And I was like, well, I guess I can, but I knew they were getting in bad shape. It was getting so bad at one point that customers were waiting until I would come in part-time on a Friday for me to fix their problems. That's really unhealthy.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, you're going to need to make some changes. You need to let a particular person go at the time. And the owner didn't really want to because he really cared for him. And the owner was an amazing guy. And finally, he agreed to let go of that person. I took it over in 2018, and then I took over 100% ownership in 2021. So I've been running it since 2018.
So you've been running since 18, full ownership then in 21, and then how did you turn it? I mean, if it sounded like it was in a pretty rough state, how did you turn it around?
It was bad shape. So truthfully, I didn't even know how to read a P&L when I first took over the company. Yeah. The owner would say, let's look at the financials. And he'd point out something on a particular line. And I'd be like, oh, that's really nice. And so afterwards, I'd be Googling how to read a P&L. I'd call my friends that were CPAs and accountants and say, hey, can you help me understand how to read this stuff? So I quickly learned how to read it. And I realized that if we could get something into that little box that said net, we would be doing good. Come to find out, the company had never turned a profit in its existence.
Wow.
And they turned a profit by 1 year on accident. And that's a long story, but they had lost so much money on other years, they never really turned a profit. So when I first got in here, I found out we're $114,000 in debt. The employees were ready to leave. The customers were leaving like Moses leading the children of Israel out of Egypt. It was bad. So I had to go to our employees, go to our customers, and look them in the eye and say, we are going to change. I need you to stick with me.
Yeah.
And so by God's grace, in 18 months, we paid off $114,000 debt and got the company debt free.
Wow.
And we're making profit. We actually turned a profit, I think, of $35,000 our first year. So in 2018, we were very excited.
Yeah. So how did you go from $114,000 in debt and never made money as a company? Like, what did you do to make even a $35,000 profit?
Well, we were still very dysfunctional from the standpoint of where we are today because we didn't know all the right things to do. I was still bidding jobs on feel. We would walk into a job. I would look at the amount of computers it have. I'd say, it'll probably take me $500 a month to do your work. Yeah. That's how I bid jobs. I don't know if you ever had those days back in the early days. I didn't know anything about, how to do it right. And, but we worked hard and, I believe God blessed us. We worked hard. We got the standardization, we re-earned our reputation and began to deliver on everything we promised. And I tell you, when you do those things, the money will come. The money will come in. And so we did that. And then, of course, just when you start getting things going, boom, COVID hit. And so the owner and I, this is kind of crazy. He wanted out. He was a big insurance man, very wealthy, one of the most generous people you ever meet. He taught me a lot of good principles on giving and everything like that. He was the go-giver before I knew of the book Go-Giver, right? So he wanted out. Having coffee one morning over a handshake, we made a deal on the company. Wow. That he wanted his original investment back, and that's all he wanted, and he was ready to get out. His original investment was $194,000 into the company. He had made $60,000 in interest payments since 2004 to about 2019, 2020. So we agreed on a payment of $225,000 for the company. I don't mind sharing this now. It's all in, everybody knows in our company. So about from 2020 to 2021, that year in COVID, we actually exploded in growth, began to, just because everybody wanted to work from home. We had to buy, we had to get everything. We really grew a lot in that period of time. To the point where when we were ready to sell the company, the owner was like, man, you guys are really worth a lot more now than that. But to his credit, and he's a man who's got a lot of wealth, to his credit, he honored that deal. And in 2021, January, I had hoarded about $400,000 in the bank. He took an owner draw of $225,000 in cash, tax-free, because we'd paid the taxes as a company. And I purchased VTG for $107. So I paid $100 for the transaction from the lawyer, was the deal on paper, and $7 for the cashier's check. So
you got to cover
that's
the
my journey to owning this company.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if any of your employees are expecting a similar transaction later on, but
well, they all do know. They're very well aware, especially the ones they've been here through all the years, that I lost several. This went white. I mean, I lost a lot of years probably in sweat equity and stress like I had never experienced in my life.
Yeah. I
can say in the Marines, I've been through some pretty rough stuff, but I don't know if I'd ever been through anything that was that mentally stressful for that long of a period of time.
So you said COVID was good to you, but then you kept growing.
We did. And this is where the journey really kind of began. I had worked so hard that in 2021, we probably were getting to about starting to edge the 2 million mark. And I had worked so hard that I didn't know how to grow anymore.
Right.
I had maxed out everything that I thought. I didn't know where to get any more growth going. And I began to hit a wall and burn out because of the years of trying to dig the company out of debt.
Yeah.
And even though it was only from 2018 to 2021, those years were hard earned. And, so when I hit that wall in 2021, I was just ready to say, hey, somebody give me a check and I'll walk.
Wow.
Write me a check for $1 million and I'll walk.
Yeah.
And I was ready to get out of here and quit. I couldn't take it anymore. And I heard of this thing because we were a ConnectWise partner, and ConnectWise was doing a demo for a peer group called TAG at the time. And it's not their group, but it was another peer group. Well, I said, you know what, maybe these people could help me. So I tried to join this peer group, and there was another company on the other side of the mountain in Charlottesville that was in it. And they said we were too close. So I got denied to get into that peer group. And then I found their other peer group and was able to join that. And when I got to that peer group, I remember there was me and my good friends. Matter of fact, one of my friends from the peer group is out here right now at our conference room. He came to spend a couple of days with us. And but we were there, and there was a bunch of MSP owners who just arrived, who several of us were at the end of our ropes. And I remember we got to the peer groups and we were just all broken down. Like we were stressed out, and they just kind of laughed a little bit and said, yep, this is when you all pretty much come when you hit this point. And if I could ever say one thing, joining a peer group was the game changer of game changers for this business. And so that's where we began to learn and take the new journey of who VTG was going to become. So.
What is it about that size and scale that you feel like almost everybody seems to hit? There's
this, I'm sure you've heard this before. They'll tell you the 1, 3, and 5 million, they're all game changers in your business. You've got to reinvent yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's hard. One of the hardest things is for an MSP to pass the first $1 million.
Yeah.
And then at 3 million, you realize your processes are terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 5 million, all the processes you think you put into place that were great no longer fit and work anymore because you've grown too much.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I didn't know. And that's why the peer groups helped so much. They helped me get my business in order, get it into a trust, get things set right. Here's how you do processes. Here's how you make sure you make the good decisions. Here's how you get your team to working together. Here's how workflows really do the best. Here's how you should do ticketing and all these things. I had no idea. And then, they got to the big thing of, well, this was the hardest part, probably the peer group. You're not charging enough. Oh boy. That one really hit me hard because legacy customers, in Dallas, Texas, I remember it was in May of 2022. In May of 2022, I had heard everybody was talking about their recurring revenue. So, and how much they were making. So I got on the phone, I called Samantha and I said, Samantha, what's our MRR? She was like 109,000, I think, roughly a month. I said, how many endpoints do we have? And she told me the number and I did the division real quick. I said, we are killing ourselves for pennies.
Yeah.
For pennies.
For pennies. That's right.
And I said, stop. We will not add one new customer right now. We are going to fix the problems in our own house first. And that's the journey we began on, getting our stacks consistent, our pricing consistent, and we began to raise and get our customers up to the right prices and let go. I remember, we're going to let go of block time. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, game changer. You're going to not do break fix? Yeah, we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Game changer. All the things they told us in the peer groups would help grow our business that we were all so afraid to do worked. And I've heard that story over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And so that's really where we started to make the game-changing differences in our companies, when we began to get processes and in the place. And then we started to deal with what the real problems were in the company. And that's kind of the next phase. Like, first you got to realize, how do I even grow? What do I do? And as you do those things, then you realize what the real problems are that are going to keep you from taking those next bigger steps. And that was a tough one too. That's one of the harder ones to swallow.
What was that for you?
So for me, the biggest thing was realizing that the biggest problem in the entire company was me.
Yeah.
Number one, bar none. I was an engineer at heart. I don't have a college degree, but I could fix anything. I was never the best engineer necessarily at any one thing, but even today in this valley, I had one of the widest skill sets ever, because I was always the person I had to learn everything. I wanted to know every single thing out there. And so that pinned me into a corner for years of being the senior engineer and trying to run the company. And then when I finally realized that, through the peer groups helping me understand that I was holding VTG back from becoming what they truly could be.
Yeah.
And when I acknowledged it to my staff and they began to help make changes, I got angry because I felt like they were trying to steal my company away. Who are you to make that decision?
Yeah.
And so I had to go through the whole emotional process of letting go. It was difficult.
It's part of who you are, right?
Yeah. It was very difficult. And then we got to the point, we realized that. And then I remember one of the guys in my peer group, who's a very close friend, said, man, you got to start hiring these middle management people. I was like, I don't see any return on income.
Right.
For those people. I was like, how do you want me to hire these people? And I remember, the first one was a VCIO, I was like, oh my goodness, a VCIO, like, what are they going to make me?
Right.
Well, I know they'll keep their customers happy. I can do that.
Yeah.
Oh, and you can run the company, and you can do all the senior engineering work, and you can do all the quotes and everything else. Sure. So hired that. And then 2022 to 2023, we decided we needed a service desk manager. And that is when God sent us Mike. In 2022, 2023, God sent us Mike Huff. And Mike was a game changer for this company.
How so?
He had 17 years of running help desks for Koch Brothers, Koch Industries, KOCH, and he had ran help desks worldwide. And he had taken his pension early and went and built a house for 5 months and decided to get back in the workforce. So he came to work for us, and he had a level of knowledge like I had never seen.
Mm-hmm.
Of not only how to run help desks, but processes. He was organized. He was the opposite of me completely when it came to organization and everything. And I remember telling Mike, I said, Mike, I just don't have the ego to get in your way.
Yeah.
And Mike, along with Danny and Samantha, I mean, it's like the team really began to take focus. We began to hire the people we needed. We brought in counseling, coaching, helping on different things. And, the biggest thing I can say is I just listened to the good advice I was given and then put it into practice, from the peer groups and from other places. So that was a big game changer when Mike came in. So
let me try to, you've covered a lot. Let me try to pull this apart, right? You made it from a tech to buying the company, which very few do, and managed the company to actually turn a profit for the first time. You made it past $1 million, which a lot of people don't, and you hit a wall at $2 million, which, if I understand, got you to really embrace the peer groups.
Yes.
But I want to kind of start it right around there. I think in the past 24 months, you doubled revenue or something like that?
Yeah. So in the end of 2023, we were about 3.4. No, wait. Excuse me. We were 2.9 million in the end of 2023. And we closed out last year 5.18 million. So in 24 months, we doubled the size of the company.
Yeah. You went from about 2 to about 2.5 to about 5.
Yeah, or excuse me, not 2, 2.5, that was 2.4. I'm sorry, not 1.9, 2.4 to 5 is where we went to. And we had a small acquisition in 2022 before Mike came on board of a guy I knew. I saw him one day on a job site. He owned a competing company. He had his other company was super successful. And I just called him. I was like, Patrick, if you ever want to sell, just give me a call. He said, you're not going to believe this. He said, I was just telling my wife I should call Frank.
That's funny.
So he came over. It was a small acquisition. It wasn't much, but it helped us get, that taste for acquisitioning. And then we just completed we're in the middle of our second acquisition right now. So that was a little bit of help. I wouldn't call it monstrous, but it did help our revenue, get up there and going to get that doubling.
So if that wasn't the main thing, there's very few people make it to 2 or 2.5 million, period. Mm-hmm. How did you add 2.5 million or so in revenue in 24 months?
So when I told you we hit that wall in Dallas, I came back in and started going through all of our customers when we were charging. We had a customer that today pays probably over $5,000 a month, was paying $500 a month since 2007. That's how long they had been paying that amount for. So we had some very messed up. We were losing money.
Yeah.
And so I had to go to all these customers, and every one of them, I said, there is no way in this world they're going to increase. I was shocked time and time again. And, some of them were tough negotiations, but I would go right in. I literally would say, look, I love y'all. and I love doing work for you, but I am losing money.
Yeah.
I said, I'm actually losing money.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I've got to increase your prices. And then, of course, when there were security, events, we would change our security stack. But one thing the peer groups did was they took away that muscle and feel of how you bid a job, and we standardized it into a worksheet. And now there is no guessing game ever. I can calculate up any size customer, anything you want within a couple of minutes, and it's done. Mm. And it's always going to be fair, and it'll be right. So once we got our pricing standardized, our security stack, and we stuck with it, and if we did give discounts, and that's why I would tell any MSP owner, it's okay to give discounts. Just set them so they start to fall off over the years. Mm-hmm. And that's how you get out of your discounts. You got to raise them. It's tremendous, but say, hey, you know what? You've been a legacy customer. I'm going to throw in there a discount. And then you just begin to let those discounts fall off. Every year they fall back a certain percentage. Mm-hmm. And that's the way we went about it. And it was just an absolute game changer. We had within our own stack of customers a gold mine that had never been tapped.
So are you saying most of that revenue growth came from your existing client?
The early first part of it did.
Okay.
And then it was just acquiring, going out and getting businesses. Now we're in a little more rural area of Virginia. Everything around here is relationship based. We still today don't have marketing. We're just now. I do have finally have a full on sales team of one person, but he's very good and he's ready to bring on a whole army full. He's right now finishing bringing all the acquisition customers in, but we went after more customers. We're blessed. I had a referral program. I'll tell you, our referral program was extremely successful. But I don't always just give it to your customers. Go after other business owners. So if you're a MSP and you're relying on cabling vendors all the time, or maybe you're out at job sites and you see the PLC guys that are working in the manufacturing, and your manufacturer say, hey man, I've got a referral program. I'll write you out the first month of MRR minus my cost of tools. I've written $8,000 checks out with a smile on my face for referrals. They're more likely to take advantage of the referral programs because they're business owners. They like to make money just like everyone else. Yeah. Where companies will do it sometimes, but I don't get as much traction off of companies. The Comcast guy, when I'm out there, I'm like, look, man, you want a referral fee? I said, you send me a good customer. I said, I'll write you a check out personally. For a referral fee. I hit everybody, anybody that's in the business side of it and helping support the industry. Yeah. I find better results from the referral program with them.
So you got most of your referrals from those guys, not
better than customers. Customers, they act like it, but rare, and they're good to go after. But the way you do a customer is you ask them for an introduction to somebody else. If you just say, hey, send to somebody, it doesn't seem to materialize. Yeah. But vendors will do that in your area. Yeah. They will recommend, especially the first time they get a taste of that check.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And because I have them ask, will you send it directly to me? I said, I don't care.
Right.
Whatever you want. I'll send it to you.
Yeah. So what do you attribute to the massive growth in the last 24 months?
Yeah. So this was so you learn all those things and you start realizing, like I told you, my friend said, that middle management was key. You've got to be willing to build out the base to support the business. Sometimes you have to plant the seeds before the rain comes. And I'm not saying being reckless and because I've seen overburdened companies. Also, get your security stack in place and stay there. Don't be this. I don't know how many people I've seen through the years in the groups and different things that are, they go after every new tool, every new thing. They're spending more money on this, that, and the other instead of actually doing good business. Yeah. Get it nailed down, stay consistent, do the best for your customers, but get your processes in place. Well, we started hiring the middle management and things really began to take off. People that I didn't see a return on income. Our VCIOs, you've got to have VCIOs, or we call them PSAs, Partner Success Advocates. And every time we're in a sales meeting, whether it's Danny or myself, he brings me in with him. We sell the PSA or the VCIO as your advocate. They're here to fight for you. They're here to hold our feet to the fire. Customers love it. To know that who comes in and sells somebody from their company that says they work for you and they're going to fight and make sure they're holding our feet to the fire. When a PSA gets a call from an unhappy customer, let me tell you what, things move quickly to resolution. It's taken the highest priority. And so that was a big game changer, hiring out those jobs, getting them in place.
Those are the ones you initially resisted.
Absolutely, because I couldn't see a return on income.
Right.
If a VCIO, or as we call them, PSA, is functioning at the right capacity, you should have a plan set up for them to not only get a portion of inside sales, but a portion for keeping retention on customers. That way they can never be one side or the other. So you don't want your VCIO to be focused on sales and lose the customer relationship. At the same time, you don't want them to miss those easy sales that are inside. Your PSAs are actually revenue generators if you do it right. Our PSAs are selling so much on the Windows Lab, we had to actually tell them to stop because we were in the middle of an acquisition. We couldn't handle anymore. Wow. We had to actually say, chill for a couple months. Okay, no more Windows 11. We couldn't even walk over in the other building hardly. We had so many computers. And so that's the big thing that helped us. Then I'll tell you another real game changer just happened lately. And this comes from the Damien Stevens show. And we had listened to the constraint theory. And we have this new meeting. We have a group, which we have a meeting called the Unless meeting, right? So the constraint theory, I remember listening to that, and the guys were giving all the excuses of why they couldn't do something. And the response back was, you can't do it unless you do what? When we heard that, we realized we are setting the bar too low. We doubled from 2.5 to 5 million in 24 months. Why couldn't we go from 5 million to 10 million in 24 months?
And the thing is, no MSP thinks that way. Right.
It's sad.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you, there is a group and a peer group that thinks that way. And that's my peer group because I shared the podcast with them. And that's what impressed me so much, just to reach out and thank you for that because it was so powerful.
And that's how we met, right? I didn't know you at all. You listened to the Theory of Constraints by Dr. Alan Bernard. And what's more important is you did something, because I'll often listen to a podcast or read a book and not do anything. And so what's really great is that you did something and you reached out and you started telling me about it. And that's how I got to know you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought it just, to me, yes, we can't make it from 5 to 10 million in 24 months easy unless, we have another acquisition, unless we have enough salespeople. The hardest part for me, one of the hardest things in MSP to do is get your sales team going. Yeah. I feel it's very difficult. I learned early on being in the peer groups, because now I have so many friends from all over. And, I've seen people that you've had, some of the OGs of the MSP world, like you interviewed Arlen not too long ago, and he's amazing. And some of their team and different people. I always reach out and ask for help. Hey, who could I get to help train my salesperson? Yeah. So I reached out to a lady who's been in the field forever, and she's amazing. She recommended us somebody, and he worked and trained Danny for months. Yeah, I paid for it. But here's the cool thing. I was sitting in a meeting at this acquisition. Now, this is where I started to get back in the way again. At the beginning of this acquisition, I thought, oh my goodness, I said, I need to make sure that I'm there making every sale, because this is my money going in. We need to make sure that's very profitable, and I've got to be the one in every meeting with Danny. So I was there till one day I was at a meeting, and I normally, when I'm there, I just take over. Yeah. He's done. You're out. I'm the owner. I'll take over. I got this now. So one day I'm there in the meeting, and Danny starts talking, and I just sat back and listened, and I was dumbfounded and shocked at how good he was. He was answering everything the way I'd showed him. He knew the stuff he had been learning all this time. And I realized, oh my goodness, I'm in the way again.
You're the bottleneck.
Yeah. Now he'll bring me in if there's a highly technical person on there specifically that likes to challenge a lot of things.
Sure.
But I realized I don't let Danny bring all these customers in. And if he doesn't get one, it's because they weren't the right customer.
Right.
And I felt so foolish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I again realized I was the problem. And he really shocked me. And I realized that training paid off. He had paid attention and he knew what he was doing. And I have 1,000% confidence in him.
Yeah. That's huge. To get even one person besides yourself working in sales. And the thing is, the hardest is going from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
Right. 1 to 2, 2 to 4, or 2 to 3, or whatever that looks like, is they have another person that's not the owner to replicate. And I think as owners, we usually are the ones getting in the way because we take over. The other thing is, I don't know about you, but I often expect them to just know what I know.
Yeah.
You've been here for like 6 months. Surely you'll know what I know in 20 years. Just go do that. Just go have these connections. Just go, right? And it doesn't work that way.
Absolutely. And that's a good point. I think the hardest thing for owners to understand is to actually admit that we take over and do things and we don't see that what the problems we're causing. We just think that we're blessing everybody with our abundance of knowledge.
Yeah.
That's what we feel like. We know what's going on, and we'll show you how to do it. And we never give opportunity to fail. If you don't let your people fail and give them the opportunity to fail, and then actually give them the opportunity to fail and be a safe place to fail, they'll never grow.
That's exactly.
They'll never grow. Yeah,
I feel like it's not the same, but it's like your children. If you don't want them to fall and skin their knee, but you got to let them, ride that bike or try that thing or do that thing where there's some possibility they'll skin their knee.
I agree. I'll give you one little piece of a thing I've learned advice to anybody listening. In the military, we always respected the chain of command. Mm-hmm. If you didn't in the Marine Corps, you would be in trouble. Right. And I expect the company to respect the chain of command because we've spent so long stopping the techs from bypassing everybody and coming straight to me. Right. As the owner, you need to respect the chain of command back down to your techs. Because most owners will bypass their service desk manager, they'll bypass their dispatcher, and they'll go right to the techs when a customer calls and they're not happy about something. They don't reverse respect the chain of command and end up doing more damage to their team than good. Now, you might wonder how I know that. No, because I did it. I've done it.
Yeah. We can leave some of these things out to protect the guilty, right?
So
I want you to share what you've told your VCIOs when they get an opportunity to minister.
Sure. So, we are a Christian company and, I don't push it down people's throat, but we also don't hide. I can't claim this success on my own. Because everybody knows my past and I should be in jail or dead. And that's just a fact of life. But I decided, a lot of people, if you do attend a church or a fellowship or whatever, everybody's kind of based their religious experience either on maybe where position they hold in their church or what kind of volunteer work they've done or whatever. And my feeling is, why can't our business be our ministry?
Yes.
Why can't business? So I've been blessed with some absolute God-fearing, loving people to work for us. And my VCIOs are believers, and they know that when the opportunity to share Christ comes up with a customer, I tell them, I don't care, be late, call ahead, tell them you can't make it, reschedule, whatever. I said, do not miss that opportunity to share. Because if we are sharing and giving and helping and doing something good, We don't do it because God will bless us, but he does bless in return. And you want to know that every day you're making a difference in somebody's life, because that's what making money is so empty. Doing something with it to help somebody else, that's so much fun.
Yeah.
Getting our employees are all involved in our giving programs and thing here, so they all get X amount of money every year to also give back to either a charity or church. Or I've got one guy loves Cat's Cradle, and we all that have had cats have probably taken one there one time, because we can only handle so many in the house at once. And, but getting that giving spirit and being able to share the good news, to me, I feel our business can be just as effective as any church.
Yeah. I love that. Business is a ministry, and tell them that you don't have to worry about that next appointment. You have that freedom to continue to be in the moment and share your story.
Absolutely. Because those sometimes you get only one shot.
Yeah.
Just like, I remember, I'm not going to plug, PAX 8 is the greatest group, but I'm just going to give them a plug, because I will say when they onboarded us some years ago, we started buying through PAX 8. I remember that was the greatest onboarding experience I'd ever had in my life.
Okay.
And I always said, we want to onboard just like them.
So how did they make that kind of impression?
That's right. The first impression, the way they cared for us. And I realized we need to make sure we do the same thing. And that you only get one chance, and that opportunity to share might only be that one day.
Yeah.
Take advantage of it.
Yeah. Can you share, I know we're getting on to another one, but can you share why that onboarding experience at PAX 8 left to?
Yeah. Well, the reason it was so good is because they took such care, and anybody in the MSP world that, has probably had that experience. We've been selling through them for some years now. I don't know. I hope it's still as good, but the way they took care of us made me so excited and happy and a joy that I had never experienced, because my experience with a vendor is, you know what I mean? We're never, they always love us at first and they never talk to us afterwards. PAX 8 was so different, the way they took care and walked us through and helped us with everything. So we began to actually bring that into our own. So we realized that my wife realized the power of the bundt cake a few years ago. Okay. Now, this is not a real thing, but it is true. You can take a donut to a customer all day long. They're like, yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. Take a bundt cake. Oh, they freak out. I don't know why. They love bundt cakes. So every new customer, my wife starts off with just an absolute spoiling them. She shows up out there, and she's one of our VCIOs too. But she also, she's also the company mama bear, you should say, but she really cares for our employees. Don't mess with them. She's very protective, but she loves the customers. She spoils them. And we realized that when we started off with just that simple gesture, telling them what was going to happen, let them know, hey, we're beginning your onboarding. This is what you're to expect. I'm not kidding. We've had customers in tears before because they had not been taken care of before like that.
Wow.
And that's a big difference. And we want to always keep that going.
Yeah.
I'm sure we don't hit it right every time, but we try to do that. That first initial experience, you know what I mean?
It's amazing, right? If others are aiming for mere customer satisfaction and you're talking about from time to time somebody's in tears, right? That's all the difference in the world in terms of an experience.
It is, and it's been a wonderful thing. And so, and that's the thing, is having VCI, that's the hard, everything always is hard, who you employ, who you hire. And we're definitely a culture first, skills second. But VCIO is a very important person to have. I feel a very empathetic, caring person in the VCIO position. Someone who can really sense the needs of the customer. And so that narrows down your VCIO field. You just I don't need an intelligent robot. I need someone who cares.
Yeah. That's a big difference. And especially when
everybody, QBRs, that stuff, customers don't care about that stuff. They care about their IT journey. Are you taking care of them? Are you looking out and helping them budget ahead of time? That's what they care about. How many threats you stopped. They don't care anything about that. At least in my experience, not anymore.
Yeah.
They don't care how many tickets you've run. I'll tell you what, if they care how many tickets you've run, that's not the right customer.
Well, you can always cause more issues and make it more.
That's right. I'm saying if they're worried about that, then they're worried about price, and it's probably not the right customer, and something else may be going wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
So, that's my opinion anyways,
Yeah. Let me switch gears and ask you, what's one of the biggest lessons you've learned in all your years in business?
Not every customer is the correct fit. Be willing to let them go. As hard as it is, be willing to let them go. And I would say on top of that is another one that leads into it, and that's don't be afraid to raise your prices. Your customers raise them to everybody else. Don't be afraid. And I find if you just sit them down, look them in the eye, and tell them truthfully, they're very understanding.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's hard. And I know it sounds so simple, but it's hard for MSPs to let go of the wrong customer, especially when you're in just getting going mode.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, any customer's the right customer in the beginning, often.
Yes, living, breathing pain is your target profile.
That's exactly right. Can fog a mirror and the check clear.
That's right. That's right.
So how do you define fit? And is that years ago? Is that a more recent?
No, it is more recent. It's come more recently. Now I know everybody says there's riches and niches, and then there probably is, but we do a lot of local government and stuff, but we don't necessarily have a niche. But what we do is we have a floor, and we have a type. We won't go under X. This is our bottom price. And that needs to be upped, because one thing you realize is $1,000 a month customer and a $3,000 a month customer take the same amount of work. And so, but if the customer's complaining, never happy, never, or wants to fight you on everything, it's okay. And a part of that process is disqualifying new customers quickly. I always tell them, I said, look, if you're looking for price, I'll never win.
Yeah.
I said, and I always tell them, people don't come to you because you're the cheapest, do they?
Right.
They come to you because you're the best.
Yeah.
And I want to do the same. So that's for me. The customer's not the right fit. You have to let them go. That's by stopping that break fix. Now, there's a few exceptions to break fix every once in a while. We have one break fix customer that will be here because there's a long play on that one. So I can't say every one of them is going away. There is one that stays.
Sure. So do you have anything defined where it's, I don't know, is it like a minimum? Is it minimum seed or?
Yeah, it's a minimum price.
Is there also other things besides price that helps you guys codify that internally? Like these are red flags or? Oh,
absolutely. I had a whole entire co-op down in another county of a farm co-op. It was big. And we went in there and meet with them, and they were ready to hand it to us on a silver platter. And when I listened to the IT guy in-house, we do a lot of co-managed. And when he started complaining about their current IT vendor, and he was complaining about things that I knew that vendor could have never known to even look for, that was impossible. I walked out of that building, and of course, we looked around first because you make sure there's no cameras outside because they do listen today. And I looked at Mike and I said, there is no way I want that job. I don't care how many thousands of dollars a month it is. We will not. And he's like, I agree.
Yeah.
And so, those are red flags on how picky the customer is, demanding up front, pushing you on price, a lot I find can be some flags to that. But, we quickly disqualify them as quick as possible.
That's really good. Yeah. What's something that you would love to do over if you could, or that you would give others advice to look for?
Join a peer group, period. Join a peer group.
When? How are they?
As soon as they'll let you in.
Okay.
They even have some sub 1 million now peer groups and stuff under there you can get in. And I would say as soon as you can get in, go there. Because it's kind of like birds of a feather flock together.
Yep.
If there's if you're hanging around 4 or 5 drug addicts and that's your friends, you'll probably become the 6th one.
Yeah.
But if you hang around people who are successful and want to move forward in the same direction, you'll become like that too. It's in church we say, that old saying, by beholding we become, right? Even though it's actually not even in the Bible, but the concept is there.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like when you're in the peer group, you're around people that want to win. Plus, we never buy a product anymore that I haven't ran up the chain through tons of friends and people from all over, and they've already tried it.
Mm-hmm.
And they can tell me, hey, this is great. No, it's not. This is a good. So those days of experimentation are over in the peer groups. So much better.
Yeah. Yeah. No reason for every single person to go through every.
Absolutely. And that's the key. I mean, you hate to tell your competition that, but hey, I would say join a peer group.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What's something, given this size, stage you are, the world and business outlook, what's something you're looking forward to right now?
Obviously continuing to grow. Like with everything, economy can go up and down. Nobody knows what tomorrow's going to bring. Mm-hmm. Whether, whatever happens in the U.S., whether politics or not, but we do see the potential for an opening, hopefully for the next few years in economically. And we want to make hay while the sun is shining. So we are looking forward to continuing to grow. We're in Virginia. I'm looking to put an office in Texas. And that's another long story, but we're looking to grow, maybe do some more acquisitions. Every time, you do an acquisition, you learn just so much. And then when you think you knew what you were doing, you'll do another acquisition. You're like, man, I really didn't see that coming. So actually a bunch of us, just 3 of us, our CFO, the head of our accounting, and myself, we just signed up for an M&A class at Wharton School of Business. So whatever. So we're going to take it all together and awesome. Just to help us dial that in. So we're looking forward to growing and hitting that $10 million mark, and we've set a pretty tight goal, and it's going to be difficult, but I always like to push the goals.
Yeah. It's impossible unless.
That's right. Unless. Unless. And I remember when when you hire your second salesperson, someone said, if they have a business of their own book of business, hire them now. Mm-hmm. You need to wait on them.
Yeah.
So if you're like, just look for somebody, our banking lady, I keep telling her, come work for us. Mm-hmm. She knows everybody. Mm-hmm. And her husband keeps saying, why don't you go work for them? And so I just tell her, when you're ready, come work for us. Because I know you have relationships everywhere. Mm-hmm. So, but that's the big thing, is growing right now. We're looking forward to that and to double once again. Mm.
Mm-hmm. Is it 24 months or what's the time frame here?
I know that sounds insane, but the goal currently, and even sometimes I look at it and say it makes me cringe a little bit, but our goal is to double again.
That's awesome.
24 months.
Yeah, that is so powerful.
Now, I'll just say a warning. There is something called a change quotient. Your employees can only handle so much.
Yes.
So make sure you're cognizant of that. And then also make sure, another thing I will just say is an FYI, if you're not on EOS as a company, get on EOS. Mm-hmm. Because that will help build, and don't try to do self-implementation. Get an implementer. It'll get the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus.
Nice.
If you're not doing EOS. So
yeah, that's huge. I think that is the most commonly recommended one amongst all MSPs is EOS. We're on it ourselves.
Oh, absolutely.
Let me ask you the flip of that. What's your biggest challenge right now?
Always, of course, in the MSP world, hiring is always tough. I would say since we're in a more rural area, one of the toughest challenges for me is living in the box of growing up in a rural area, thinking that people can't accept certain things because of the culture around. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example. I remember we were having trouble where all of our people would be dispatched in the field. Nobody was running tickets. I said, well, if I hire another person, you'll just send them out in the field and we'll still won't have somebody running a team. So we hired our first South African employee. And oh my, I think they sent us the greatest South African employee in history. This guy gets so many perfect reviews. We're tired of, we celebrate everybody's reviews all the time. It's just, it's even, oh, he got another one. Really? I told him the other day, I said, he's got to be a robot. He can't even be human. And so we started hiring, and I said, there's no way that people in rural Virginia will accept South Africans. And they're by far our most treasured, loved employees. Wow. The customers love them to death.
Why did you have that preconceived notion?
Because I grew up in a very, very conservative, not just conservative politically, but, this was just an area where I would say it's a very white dominated area. And people are just not used to it. I wouldn't say this is not like, I wouldn't say racist area at all. Don't mean that at all. It's just our culture is very, it's a heavy Mennonite country. It's, it's just the way it is around here.
Yeah.
And so having people, it doesn't really matter here what race or whatever. It's the fact that you're from here. That's what makes the difference. Well, they don't like outsiders as much.
There's cultural differences. There's dialect differences.
Right? Absolutely. South Africa. So the next thing is now we're implementing our first chat.
Okay.
Because Mike came to me a few years ago and said, we need to start doing chat. I was like, Mike, come on, man. That's what you do in corporate stuff. I said, there's nobody around here except chat. Until one of our peers in Hawaii is solving 60% of their help desk tickets through chat. And their customers love it. And so I came back and decided, all right, you're right again. I was like, I'm done. You know what I mean? Thinking in this box that we can't do that. So I said, you know what? Let's do a pilot with a customer that's one of our tougher customers. And if we can get through them, we can do it. So I went to the customer and said, would you be willing to do a chat pilot with us? And she said, oh yeah, absolutely. We'll do it. So we're getting ready to pilot it, you know what I mean, on a few customers specific, and then release it out through there. So stop thinking in this box that I've been in. I've been proven wrong so many times. It's ridiculous.
I know what you mean. Now, does your team have fear that that'll create perception of instant availability because an email is, perceived to take a little longer than a chat?
I don't know yet. I guess I can't really say because we haven't fully implemented it. That's a good question. I don't know. I'm hoping not. But we feel like we've got the format set up correctly on how we're going to do it in the escalation process. And the good news is they're always going to be chatting with the same people. So it's not like you're getting a random person on a Delta Skyline Miles chat because you're stuck in an airport and you're trying to get moved over to, another airplane and you have no idea. And then the person doesn't even come close to speaking anything you can understand.
Yeah.
So even though the South Africans have an accent, it sounds Australian. And truthfully, I'm not gonna lie, the ladies love it. I ask my wife all the time. I think they all look like Chris Hemsworth. And that's a big thing.
Is that going to shape your plans to hire elsewhere, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to shape some of our plans and how we hire going forward. But when you start looking at your tickets and realize, obviously automation can help tremendously. Automating is a huge thing. But, also being able to just handle those quick tickets and instant service, we believe is going to give the customers like, hey, they're fast.
Yeah.
Because if 60% or so are tier 1 level, then why not just take care of them instantly if we can?
Yeah.
So we're hoping that, and that will obviously affect everything we do in the future.
Right.
Whether we keep the chat. But I feel that because they'll know, hey, I'm on chat with this person or I'm on chat with that person, there's a familiarity and they'll feel like they're at home working because those people will know, they'll just call them back if they can't fix it over chat.
Yeah.
So they're going to feel this comfort, I believe, of the, working with their team they're used to. So.
What's the number one book or number two?
Number one book. That was the easiest thing I think to ever answer. I'll tell you right now, making money is killing your business. There is no better for a business owner, for an MSP owner. Making money is killing your business. I could not recommend a better book ever. And I will teach you how to get your business to a place. The ultimate place for an MSP owner is to be in is that your business doesn't need you to run.
Yeah.
You should be able to be gone for a month and your business should be able to run. Now, I would never recommend that the owner takes his hands off the reins. You always should be there. A good owner should be always, there, but you should be able to leave.
Yeah.
And the other thing I realized through this book is I never want to retire, but I want to live life, enjoy my family on my terms.
Yeah.
And not be strapped to the business. And it's closer than you think, but it takes a few years to get there and you got to start the process. So that would be my number one book to read. Yeah. So if you've never read it, read it. It's great.
It's great advice. For everybody that's listened, if they'd love to reach out to you or get your advice, connect with you, whatever.
Absolutely.
Is there a way they can do that?
LinkedIn's the best way. I don't even have personal social media. But I am on LinkedIn. Just hit me up there. I'll be glad to talk with you. Just mention you saw me on this show and that you're not a vendor trying to sell me something else, and I'll definitely respond.
We all get enough of that.
Now, if I'm trying to hit you up and sell you something, please do respond back to me.
It's different in that case.
That's right. So.
This has been such a blessing. I thank you for this. Take Frank up on his offer. If there's any way he can help, you're missing an opportunity if you don't. I can tell you firsthand. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you, Frank, for this blessing and gift of your time. And thank you so much for being on MSP Mindset.
Hey, I appreciate it. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. And thanks again. And please, anybody reach out. Be glad to do whatever I can to help you out. And if you're not in a peer group, go join one. Have a great day.